Hey there, YouTube. We need to talk. So look, when I first made this podcast, I decided to go straight to video and skip out on audio only, like iTunes and Stitchers. I figured I would use YouTube because I wanted people to actually see me and my co-host dialogue. And with video, you can enhance things by throwing in clips, things like that. Now, the downside of YouTube, and this is especially true for smaller channels like ours, is that there's just a ton of trolls. Like, we constantly have people asking what bra size Shayra is. The other co-hosts and I get called beta cuck males all of the time. In fact, I think I'm like a tier 3 beta cuck male now. I don't even know what that is. So it's just a staple of YouTube to deal with trolls, right? And I think everybody knows this. It's especially true if you or your co-hosts have perspectives that lean left, right? Or even worse, if you're discussing topics that require interpretation, like film or music, because interpreting art is largely perspectival. You may get something completely different from a film that I do because we're different people with different life experiences. Certain things may speak to you that don't speak to me. And I've noticed that a great deal of our commenters lean right, at least way more right than the people on this podcast. And many of you seem to have real problems with us bringing up things like feminist interpretations of particular scenes in movies. In fact, it's to the point now where just the word feminist or trans, those words themselves just trigger people to write us off as SJWs and just disregard anything else we have to say. And that's a real shame, guys, because none of us are SJWs. We find that hilarious. None of us are holding up signs on the weekend or making our life staple some left-wing cause. We're simply a bunch of dudes, and I include Shayra in this too. Shayra's totally our dude, who enjoy horror films, but we also do happen to lean left politically. And I make no apologies for that. It's gonna come out in our film analyses. We're not gonna lie about who we are or our views because it's unpopular on this medium. But with that said, I hope you would see that we also provide reasons or arguments for why we think our views are the case. We make a case for our perspectives. We provide reasons to think that what we're saying is true. Now, you may think those are bad reasons, and you're free to do that. And if you disagree with those reasons, that's great. Tell us why you disagree with what we've said. I love that. I want people to disagree with me. I like fighting, motherfucker. I like fighting out views. I like hashing it out. I don't know why I'm doing this. That looks really violent. Anyways, that's the beta cuck male coming out. It's too violent. But I want people to disagree with me. I have no problem with that. I didn't think by coming to YouTube we'd be entering this echo chamber, right? So disagree with us, but tell us why something we've said is wrong. Don't just comment to label us SJWs and then move on. There's an irony in doing that, because isn't that typically the worst part of the left, right? That labels people as a way of disregarding their views. Oh, you're a Trump supporter? Well, you're just a racist. There's no reason to take you seriously or listen to what you have to say. I mean, that's not fair, right? Well, neither is calling us SJWs and kind of not listening to anything we have to say too. So let's be fair here. It's totally true that pretty much everyone on this podcast leans pretty left. And if you don't want to listen to our perspectives because of that, there's tons of other horror channels right here on YouTube for you. Many of them that actually produce commentary that leans very right. Go watch the Critical Drinkers YouTube channel, for example. He has 20 times the amount of subs that we do. He's a dude who pretends that he's drunk while shitting all over films, many of them horror films, for things like political correctness and gender roles and things like that. But look, for us, film analyses will eventually lend itself to social and political issues, even in horror films. For example, I have no idea how you could discuss Get Out without talking about race, or, The Purge without talking about social class, or The Silence of the Lambs without talking about what it means to be a trans person, a la Buffalo Bill. So certain films, especially horror films, ask questions that are inherently social and political, and they should. I mean, the genre would be really stupid without that. It would just be an infinite number of Annabelle films. And because of this, because horror films often ask questions that are inherently social and political, any deep thought about those films is going to bring out of the woodwork the social and political perspectives of those unpacking the movie. So I make no apologies for the political beliefs that we hold. It's certainly not something we purposefully aim to wedge into the films that we cover needlessly. Like, we're not trying to find reasons to bring left-wing political talking points into films that we discuss. And if it seems that we've done that, if it seems like that's the case, then I do apologize for that. That is certainly not our intention in this podcast. I mean, if you look at most of the films that we've actually covered, they deal with much deeper personal and philosophical issues rather than that of the political. Like, I love horror films that have a familial bend to them. I like familial horror films because I had a fucked up childhood, right? Ben, our other co-host, he enjoys horror films that have sort of a meditation on death. Shayra's scared to death of films that deal with a loss of agency and personhood. I mean, these are all much more important issues to us on this podcast than whether or not, like, a film reeks of male privilege or not. So I want you to understand that. I want our viewership to know that, this is who we are. That's not going to change. You're free to unsubscribe if you don't dig it, but at least do the work of offering a substantive reason for why we're going wrong when you think we're going wrong. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go force this bakery to bake a cake for my gay cousin. I knew immediately when we walked into that place we were going to have an issue with the crosses everywhere and the fact that there were no gender-neutral bathrooms. My God. And now I kind of want cake. Anyway, peace.